Hey, this is Hunter Williams. I serve as the Awana missionary for Central and Southeast Tennessee. And the question I have for you today is this: how do you run a children's ministry? I know that's a really big, broad question, but how do you run a children's ministry? And the way I would answer that is this: it all depends on how you view the children's ministry sandbox. All depends on how you view the children's ministry sandbox. Now, what in the world do I mean by sandbox? That sounds really weird. Well, when I was a kid, and this was probably the same for many of you, playground I would go to had this huge sandbox that kids could play in. And, some kids, they built sand castles, other kids would play with Tonka trucks, and then others would bury or look for treasure, right? And what's interesting about that is we're all within those same four walls, we're all within the same sandbox, but we're all doing different things. We're playing different games. Why? Because our perspective, our way of viewing the sandbox determined how we played, it determined our practice. And in the same way, in kids ministry, we all, every children's ministry, we really have the same four things we're operating off of, the same four walls, if you will. We're focusing on children, right? We're asking, how do we relate with kids? How do we make sure they're staying safe in our ministries? And then how do we ensure that they're having fun and that they're enjoying their time with us? We're also thinking too of leaders. How do we recruit leaders effectively? How do we train them well? How do we celebrate them? Give them appreciation so they don't get burnt out. We're also thinking three of curriculum. We're thinking, is this biblically based? Is it kid focused? Is it leader friendly? We're thinking all those things as we determine curriculum for our kids. And then fourth, we're talking about parents. How do we connect with parents? How do we give them good solid resources for discipleship at home? And then how do we get them involved in their children's lives and in their spiritual growth? So those are the four things every children's ministry is really operating off of. But here's the thing: their philosophy, their perspective, their view on how to answer the questions on these four things will determine how they play in the kids' ministry sandbox. Their philosophy determines their practice. And so you can ask, well, how do I know what my philosophy on these things is? Well, it's good to just take a step back and really reflect and think through, how am I answering these questions around children's safety and fun? How am I answering questions around training leaders, or the way I choose curriculum, or how I deal with parents? And the more you peel back those layers, the more you're really getting a glimpse of your philosophy. And one thing I love about working with Awana is Awana has a strong, resilient child discipleship philosophy that influences everything they do, from the way they write curriculum to the way they train leaders. So I'd encourage you, spend time writing down, what is my philosophy? What's my perspective on these things? What is driving my practice in all these issues? And the more, like I said, you can reflect and peel back on these things, the more you'll see what is determining how you run a children's ministry. And if you have any questions about philosophy, how to determine your philosophy, or even on Awana's resilient child discipleship philosophy, I would love to talk with you. Feel free to send me an email at hunterw@awana.org, and would love to connect with you about that. But other than that, again, be thinking through, how are we operating in the KidMin Sandbox, and is it building resilient disciples for the future? It's a great question to ask. But anyways, have a great day. Look forward to seeing you next video. Take care.